listening to the Zach Gelb Show on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey.
What a month of April that it was for the New York Yankees. Now we'll see what May does have in store. And coming up tonight, 7:05 first pitch at the big ballpark in the Bronx. It is the Yankees going up against the Blue Jays. Yanks win the series. Don't get the sweep, though, over the Orioles with the loss yesterday. And tonight it's going to be Severino on the mound as the Yanks get set to battle the Toronto Blue Jays. So let's head out to New York and welcome in a reporter for the Yankees for many years on WFAN, and that, of course, is Sweeny Murti, who's kind enough to hop on board with us right now. Sweeny, appreciate a few minutes. Thanks for the time, and how are you?
Of course, Zach. Anytime. I'm doing great. How are you?
Well, I'm doing great, and I do appreciate the time today. Let's just wrap up yesterday because that was a bizarre game. Let's start with the balk play in the ninth. Your interpretation of what happened there in the ninth with the balk play.
Yeah, I don't really know. It was a balk move. I was actually thinking initially that it was an obstruction call because they held the runner down trying to get up from second base. And that was initially what was announced in the press box. I think Buck even said he didn't question that it was a call. He just didn't know who called it. Well, I'm sorry. If it was called, it's fine. It ended up. I actually would have liked to have seen there was a play at the plate when the Yankees, the Orioles got an out at the plate on a chopper to third, and I would have liked to have seen what would happen if they'd have looked at it and said if the catcher was blocking the plate or not, because I think that he actually was. Buck was already hot at getting run out of the game for the balk. I would have loved to have seen what would happen if he'd have lost because they challenged the play at the plate and ruled the catcher was blocking home plate. He might have left the visiting manager's office in tatters if that had happened.
So the Yankees come through, though, in that ninth before losing the game. In extras, you had the Didi base knock that tied up the game. But also, when in this game where the Yankees bullpen, we know, was in a tough spot, and Girardi then came up with Brian Mitchell, who was pitching, then playing first base, and then back to pitching. I've never seen that in my life, Sweeny.
Not many of us have. There was, famous incident with the 85-86 Mets around there. Davey Johnson did it late in an extra inning game, and the Yankees themselves put out a note that says in Yankee history, there's never been a pitcher who took a position and then went back to pitching since 1908. So it's been a long time. The idea was basically that you could use Aroldis Chapman in that situation. You have a left-handed pitcher with an all-right lineup, and you have him for one inning. He doesn't. You don't get a lot of contact off of him. There's a good chance he's going to strike out all the batters, and without a lefty batter up, probably a really good chance that you're not going to have any hard line drives hit toward first base. I guess we didn't count on pop fouls that Mitchell ended up dropping one and catching another. The idea behind it worked in that he got to use Aroldis Chapman and extend the game that way, and then he went back to Mitchell to see how far he could take him, because he had nobody else who could go further into the game. Mitchell's reward for being a good soldier was he got sent back to the minors today because they need somebody else to pitch in the bullpen in case they need some more innings. So he's a guy that the Yankees have a bright future in. On the mound, not necessarily at first base.
The reaction, though, in the press box, when you see something like that no one in that press box has seen, what was the reaction and what was the conversation like in the press box when they first saw Mitchell going over to first base?
Yeah, you're kind of like, what happened there? Is that really what's going on? And your first thought, you wonder if somebody's injured, because the Yankees hadn't used Greg Bird yet. But the reason why now is because you need him to hit later, because they had lost the DH and you didn't want the pitcher to bat for himself. And then you start to think about why, and really the first thing in my mind was, Adam Warren pitched like 2+ innings yesterday. He's not available. Tommy Lane's the only other pitcher in the bullpen now. He's left-handed. There's nothing but right-handed batters in the lineup. It's not a good mix for him. Mitchell's as far as you can go, and you had Chapman, who you're no longer in a save situation in a tie game at home. So you either you either use him there or you end up not using him at all, unless because you don't want him to go, 2 or more innings. So, yeah, you kind of had to piece it together a little bit and see what happens. I hadn't written that in my scorebook very many times, and don't know if I will again. But it was a little unusual, no doubt.
Sweeny Murti with us right now on the Zach Gelb Show. Sweeny, if you would have told me before the year that the Yankees in the first month would have been 15-8, I wouldn't have believed you. And especially if you would have told me that they would have been without Sanchez and Didi Gregorius for most of that. But the most impressive part from the month of April has been Aaron Judge. What has it been like to just watch this kid play this year and the start that he's off to?
It's pretty phenomenal because he's unusual in the first regard, just because how big he is. Going back a couple of spring trainings, I remember there were several days in a row I'd be standing by the other team's dugout talking to one of their coaches or the manager or somebody as the Yankees were taking BP, and I had my back turned to home plate, and I can, at least 3 or 4, 5 times, the guys would be looking over my shoulder and they'd say, "Who is that?" And I wouldn't have to turn around. I knew right away they were talking about Aaron Judge. It's just unusual to see a guy who's that big on a baseball field. I mean, a guy that size should have been taken in last week's NFL draft, not playing baseball for the Yankees. But that's what he's doing, and there aren't very many guys who succeed hitting a baseball at that level because it's so hard to get the body parts that size moving in the right direction to hit baseballs on a consistent basis. That's why you just haven't seen it very often. And he's a success story in that regard. And a lot of the concerns were about strikeouts and being able to make contact consistently at the big league level. And he didn't do a very good job of it in his short stint last year. And but the kid, a guy that everybody believes in as a hard worker, as a guy who has the tools because he's so athletic. He's not just this big monster up there who can hit home runs and do nothing else. He's a very athletic player, and to watch him, he played center field in college for a good college team at Fresno State. So it wasn't like he was just this one-man band on a bad team somewhere. He's athletic enough to play Division I center field, and his speed, his athleticism, those are all things that you kind of get to see when you watch him play on an everyday basis. And, on top of that, he hits the ball about 120 miles an hour and hits it 450 feet. It's a pretty good combination to have.
Now, I know it was a concise sample size last year. In 27 games, he was batting 179. If I had to ask you before the year what his first month would have looked like, no one would have predicted this, but what type of first month did you expect out of Aaron Judge?
I don't really know because you're right. He didn't have success at the big league level last year. And I don't know that I would have predicted anything more than him hitting, 250 with, 3-4 home runs. I think the idea with Judge, though, was that what really stood out and you like to see, he struggled when he first got to Double-A and then took off. He struggled when he first got to Triple-A and then took off. He had his first struggle at the big league level, and then you saw what he was able to do with it. He's got a good aptitude, knows what pitchers are trying to do, is able to, he's still going to strike out. That's the thing. It's just part of the equation when you're that kind of hitter and you're that big. He's still going to strike out a lot. But in between, you're going to see a lot of things that you really like what you've seen for the last couple of weeks. I think that he's just fun to watch play baseball, not just hit. This isn't just a guy who you like to go see at batting practice and, 5 o'clock he's great, and at 7 o'clock he's, not so much. This is a guy who's a pretty good baseball player. And, whether it's the highlight you saw of him, running into the stands in Fenway Park or some of the fly balls he tracks down, some of the hard line drives he hits up the middle, things like that. There are a lot of things that you like watching him do, and don't take your eye off him because he just might hit one 460 feet the next time up.
A few more with Sweeny Murti, is kind enough to hop on board with us on the Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920 The Jersey. With Gary Sanchez, we know the return is soon. Is there more of some specifics on that? When's the earliest we could expect to see Gary Sanchez back?
He begins his rehab assignment tomorrow night. It's likely to be at AAA, not AA Trenton. I know that people listening probably might be thinking they had a chance to go see him. But he's scheduled to go to AAA tomorrow. It wouldn't seem like it would take that long. He's been out just over 3 weeks. A few games there, and you'll see him back with the Yankees by the weekend.
Now, since you brought up the Trenton Thunder, because you know that we're the flagship station of the Trenton Thunder, I know we're very far away from this happening, but with how good Didi Gregorius, and I know it's going more back from last year compared to this year, but we know how good of a player he is, and then you have Torres as well. What happens long-term with the Yankees in that infield with those two players?
I think it's a great problem to have. Right now, you've got a guy who's played above A-ball for just less than a month because he was hurt in Gleyber Torres. So I think you let it happen. He's going to be moving around the field a little bit at second, third, and short for Trenton. So you'll get a look and see how he plays the other positions. And I think it's a great problem to have that you've got too many good players at one position. The Yankees have Chase Headley for this year and next year. They have Starlin Castro still under control. But if you decide you need to get this kid in your big league roster, I think you'll figure out how to do it and move him around until a permanent spot opens up. The idea really is let's let Gleyber Torres play a little bit of time above A-ball and then figure out what to do with him when he pushes his way to the big leagues.
Wrapping up with Sweeny Murti now, a problem that is not good to have is Greg Bird because he's not had a good start, and that's an understatement to start this 2017 campaign. Where's your confidence that Bird gets this thing going?
I think everybody around the Yankees is very confident he gets it going because you've seen it in two different stints. I know you don't really read too much into spring training performances, but what Bird did this past spring training showed you he's healthy, really mainly, and showed you what he can do when he is healthy. Square the ball up as much as he did. Beyond that, you have in your bank what he did in September 2015 and the power he showed there. And even beyond that, it's September and March are the two hardest times to evaluate players. So the success I'm talking to you about Greg Bird is based entirely on September and March. But Brian Cashman was quick to remind us there was a time not too long ago when the best hitting prospect in the organization internally was not Gary Sanchez, was not Aaron Judge, it was Greg Bird. And you've been able to see him do what he's capable of a couple of times, and now he's off to the start he's been. There really is no thought to sending him down. This is his chance to hit himself out of it. The Yankees also are not struggling for record. They're not struggling for runs. And they really don't have, outside of Chris Carter, there's not somebody else really knocking on the door to say, listen, we need to take away Greg Bird's at-bats and give them to player X. So Bird is going to be allowed to keep doing what he's doing here because the Yankees are in a position to allow that to happen, and they have a lot of confidence that he will turn it around quickly.
Sweeny, last one before we let you run. Obviously, we talked about Judge and the surprise he's been, and also the starting rotation, to me, has been a lot better than what I thought it was going to be going into this year. After seeing them a month, and I know it's only a month, are you a buyer or a seller in what the Yankees are doing right now when it comes to this season? I'm not saying they're going to be the best team in baseball from the first game to 162, but how good do you think this club could be this year?
Well, I think they can be this good offensively, maybe not this good, but they can be a good offensive team all year long based on what you've seen in the first month. Last year the Yankees trotted out an old and hurting team and kept trying to draw offense out of it, and it just never clicked. You had, the guys you finally relied on were Didi Gregorius, Starlin Castro, Gary Sanchez. They're all part of this still. The Yankees have a lineup now that has healthy players and not old and unproductive players. That's what they're forced to deal with last year. What you've seen now, I think, tells you that you can get more out of this and expect. There's upside here. You can dream on this a little bit. Last year's offense was old and stale, and this year it's not. So I think you can dream that part of the game is going to be able to continue somewhat to this degree. It's a matter of how far the pitchers are going to take you. You're right. That's something that's a little more tenuous, even with the first month they gave you.
Sweeny, we appreciate it. Thanks so much. A lot of fun. Thank you.
Thanks, Zach. Anytime.